All right. So again, welcome to AB Cricket Diaries, and today again, the legend of cricket Twitter, Dweplea, Deepak has joined us. And the last episode we have done to cover India historic tour of 1971, and surprisingly, it got very good response. Actually, when I upload any video related to non-popular cricketers, it not get as much response as did. Maybe Dweplea fan following is a key factor here. So now we are going to today in episode we'll cover 1974 series, and in same way we will try to cover each tour of India of England. So yeah, Dweplea, over to you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's probably the fact that we also covered it really well. I think what happens often with these videos is they log in and then they stay around for a few minutes, but then they drift away. But I think we did a really good job of covering the ins and outs of that series, about sort of the preview to it, how it turned out, and what are the consequences from that series. I think we did a pretty good job over there. I hope we can cover this tour in as much depth as we covered the last one.
And today was actually kind of challenging for us because unlike 1971, this was not more popular.
Oh yeah, this is the complete polar opposite of the 1971 tour, where the 1971 tour is historic for the breakthrough that it was for Indian cricket. 1974 is probably one of the lowest ebbs in Indian cricket history, and it's certainly one of the most fractious and most terrible tours that India have ever embarked on. All the players agree on this, not just on the pitch, but even behind the scenes. This was a very, very fractured and ugly tour.
When India went to England, so they have beaten England at home in 73. Before that, they have won the historical series in West Indies and England as well. And as you know, that South Africa was already cut by apartheid. So at that time, there were no clear top-ranked team, and India was quite close. I mean, you can count themselves at a solid team at that time. So there were very high expectation from them, and all players were now Gavaskar and everyone was kind of well experienced, unlike 70s 71 tour. Their spin attack, they have all their four quartet with them, and everything was perfectly fine. Wadekar was now very well experienced, as considered as a very shrewd captain. So just I wanted you to set the background.
Oh yeah, so you've done a pretty good job of setting up the Indian background on that side. So as you said, India were coming in. Their last three series were series wins. So in 1971, they went to the West Indies. They won in the West Indies 1-0. In 1971, the summer of 71, they went to England. Well, they won 1-0 over there, which were, their breakthrough overseas performances. I know they had won a series in 1968 in New Zealand, but that was a very middling New Zealand side. And then England came over to India in 72-73, and India won again. That was another triumph. That was the first series that India won against them at home. So that was also a first in many ways. It was not like India had regularly been beating teams at home. And so that was also a breakthrough in many ways. And so India were coming in off a good run of results, but also, as you notice, these are three series in a 4-year period from the start of 1970 up till the 1974 summer. In about 4 years' time, they had only played these three series, and they were very successful in these three series. But from a point of view of sort of understanding where a team lies and where exactly they stand in terms of, how each player's form is going and all of those things, it was not quite clear as an idea as you would get today. I mean, imagine a team today playing three series in 4 years. That'd just be crazy. That would just not happen. And so, as you said, there was a lot of positive expectation coming in from the Indian side, because it wasn't as if the team was going through a massive transition, or there was new players coming in, or there was some large upheavals. They were coming in with largely the same core they came in with in 1971. Gavaskar was a more mature player, as you mentioned. The spin quartet was still at their peak of their powers in the early to mid 1970s. And they still had the same amount of continuity too. Wadekar was still the captain of the team. Vishwanath was still a fine player. I'm trying to think of more players. Even the pace options that they used to take the shine of the ball, Abid Ali and Solkar, even they were being carried over from the 71 tour.
Yeah. I think here only I won't say that they did a mistake, but even though domestically they don't have really good option. But in 71, they got kind of lucky with these kind of pace attacks.
Correct. We will get to that very soon. And for the reasons why they got very lucky with these particular gaps. And so, it was a team that had continuity. It was a team that was coming in on a high, not immediate high, but high in the preceding years. And they were coming up against an English side, which we had set the scene in 1971 that the English side was coming in of 26 games without a single loss. And that English side was considered at the time the best in the world. And they had come off a very successful Ashes campaign away from home, driven by Jon Snow and contributions from their batsmen. And so coming into this tour, it was quite different because they had come in as, well, they were not a clear sort of like poor team, because at that point of time, a lot of teams were going through transitions. Even Australia was going through it. The West Indies were going through an upheaval of their own after their generation was going out and a new generation was coming in. And so there was upheaval around the world. It's not just with them, but they were coming in off very middling results. So I think the summer prior, the West Indies had come over and beaten them. And that was a West Indian side that, as I mentioned, was sort of coming through. And then they went over to the West Indies and they were able to draw that series. But if you really look through it and you sort of understand the context of what happened in those games, they really had to fight tooth and nail to be able to draw that series. It was not a series where, the two teams were on level footing. They were quite lucky to come out of that series with a draw.
They won it actually, specifically, if I would say, the Joe Bacot won it by his own individual brilliance.
Correct. And this is an important character, an important part of what will come next. And so coming into this series, as a further contrast to the 1971 series, in the 1971 series, their captain was Ray Illingworth, who was a very well-regarded tactician and a very, very well-respected member of the team. Whereas in this series, the captain was Mike Dennis, who was a very controversial pick as captain because, as you mentioned, Jeff Boycott, he wanted the captaincy, but he wasn't given the captaincy, and this rather sort of new player on the scene was given the captaincy, and he didn't like it much at all. And there was a lot of sort of a very fractured relationship between the two of them, and even generally there was discontent within the entire team towards Mike Dennis. And the press also, he wasn't really the press's darling at that point of time, so he was coming in under a lot of pressure in this series. And the team, as we had mentioned, not particularly great results coming in. So there was a lot of tension around this series, and that tension was heightened by Jeff Boycott and what is happening with him behind the scenes. We'll get to that a bit later when we talk about the first test, but we can know that for now.
Yeah. So now we'll talk about that first game. I think it happened in June, and here specific point I have mentioned in one live session as well with Nikhil Bhai and all. One question popped up that people just compare one previous to other two, but the timing and schedule of career is quite important. In England, when any team tour in June and then any team is going to in August, it's drastic difference in between these months.
Yes.
That you notice in the results as well.
Yeah.
So when India just went there, so I think weather was, if I would say, it was quite miserable. The biting cold, winds and showers messing with play. I think first 4 days weather messed up. And the thing is that Old Trafford hadn't seen rain in months. But the moment India showed up, the skies just opened up. So I think
Old Trafford always rains when it's about to be, when cricket's about to come to town.
One I just can't recollect the name, but one newspaper or media that even labeled it that India was outrageously unkind. And this weather kind of that thrown off their secret weapon, that their spin quartet, spin heavy attack.
Yeah. And so as you were mentioning, this was another part of the build-up. This was an inversion in many ways of the 1971 summer, because in the 1971 summer, Pakistan had come in the first part of the season and India had come in the second part of the season when it was much drier. And we had talked about how the conditions in 1971 played out. So, the pitches at Edgbaston and at Oval and Lords were quite dry. Even that tour, the Manchester surface was quite lively for the pace bowlers, and there was a lot of rain around even in that tour. But, the pitches around it were quite, and they escaped with a draw at Manchester. But the pitches around it, which allowed India to be in the series, were quite dry and they were quite amenable to their methods. Whereas in this summer, this was the inversion. So here, India comes in the first half of the summer when it is biting cold and it is so cold that the slip fielders have to put their hands in their pockets all throughout the day until it's right before the delivery, and even the spinners. So one very important part for spinners is they have to grip the ball and get a good feel of the ball. And if your hands are completely frozen over, it's very hard to feel that grip in your hand. And so the spinners really struggled with that in this particular. So Pakistan came in the second half of this summer, and India came in the first half with their spin bowlers who were not well equipped to sort of exploit the conditions where a seam dominant attack would have done better. Before we continue on with this thing, it's important to note that it is not just the conditions that were against India, it was also the playing conditions that sort of worked against them. It's not just, it's often the case that India visits countries like England or Australia, and it's all about how it is natural that the conditions go against India, and there is no sort of premeditated or planned thing on the part of the English or the Australians to sort of make it harder for India. But especially in this case, it's not true, because I wonder if you're aware of this. Back in the day, they didn't have quite the sort of formal structure under the ICC and the MCC in the same way that they have today for playing conditions, for the laws that they will be playing under. And so back in the day, there used to be bilateral agreements between the two teams about what the playing conditions should be for that particular series that they would play. And so before this series, when they sat down, the two teams agreed to have a certain restriction on the number of fielders they can put square and behind square. That wasn't there for the following series between England and Pakistan. And so India saw this as a move to make their close-in fielders that they would line up for the spinners less effective. And so they were not able to have the sort of the administrative power to sort of tussle with England on this particular playing condition. And so the series went ahead with this particular playing condition. And so this really worked against India too.
Yeah, and it was very crucial point, because in the previous series 1971, their close fielders are played an important role in India, then especially Solkar and Abid Ali as well. So it was, I would say, that kind of smart and tactical move by England.
Oh yeah, incredibly smart. Yeah.
So in the first game, that unlike previous series, now the England captain won the toss and they decided to bat, and both teams have handed over the one young bowler debut. England bring, I guess, Mike Hendrick, and India bring Madan Lal. The first game, and as you mentioned that first 4 days interrupted by rain. So first days, I guess, game happened for only 4 hours, and England struggled in 4 days. Even with Solkar and Abid Ali made them hard work to do, and they scored IPS 110 or 100 something for 4 wickets. Only this Dennis Ames dug in there. He scored, I think, 50 odd runs, and then they sent the night watchman Derek Underwood. He was also, I think, I'm not sure whether he was out or not out by end of the day, but conditions were quite bad for batting. Then the next day also, after a bit of rain, Keith Fletcher did a solid batting. He scored, I guess, his 4th test century that day. And then came the very dynamic cricketer Tony Greig. So before that, it was quite crawling kind of batting going on, very slow batting going on, and struggled. But Greig came, and he just from ball 1 he just started smashing. That it got no carry waste, and they scored, I think, 100 odd runs together, Fletcher and him. And Madan Lal dismissed him, I guess, Greig, and then he dismissed Ellenott as well. But England keeps scoring. Their Fletcher keep adding runs with Talenders also. Chris Holt and Bob Willis. They have had 60 odd runs for 9th wicket. And then Dennis declared finally. I think they didn't score a huge run, but 300 something run they scored, 328 run. But in those conditions, it was quite a good score. And India got half an hour.
And they were also compelled by the amount of time that was lost in the test.
Yes.
To take that declaration, because so much rain had taken place in the first couple of days that they were declaring pretty deep into the test match. It was a declaration more as much on the score they had reached, but even more so on the amount of time that had been taken out of the test. So they felt compelled to put India into play.
Yeah. And then India got half an hour to bat, and the Bob Willis pulled off a very good catch at slip. So even in those days, fast bowlers used to fielding in slip position. Interestingly, he got this catch of Solkar. So Solkar, imagine that Solkar was India's opening bowler and opening batter as well.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a specialist in both. Neither he was a specialist opener and a specialist bowler. But still, how India in those times just maximize the potential of a player, or in other ways, they simply doesn't have any other options.
I would say it is because they had basically no other options.
Yes, good option. That Solkar was kind of by that he was. If you ask him for anything, he would be ready.
Yeah.
So the story was that when Pataudi asked to field who will field at short leg, so nobody was willing to do, and then Solkar came ahead that I will do that. Yeah. So then India also sent Venkat Raghavan, and he was out in the last over. So India finished the day at 14 for 2. And then day 3 again, rain came. So play start, I think after afternoon game got started, and India lose Wadekar as well early. Again, Hendrick, another fast bowler, he was fielding at slip and he took a good catch for Wadekar. But then after that, Gavaskar and Vishwanath, they put kind of good batting. They scored, I guess, 70 odd runs, and contrary to Gavaskar batting speed, they batted with good speed.
Correct.
Gavaskar even hooked us 6.
This is actually rated among Gavaskar's best knocks. So Gavaskar and Vishwanath really unfold quite a few strokes in this particular counter-attacking innings that they put together. And so it's kind of funny that, this is regarded as one of Gavaskar's best innings. And just 3 years prior, in another innings in Manchester, he had scored another innings that he rates even higher than this one. And so Manchester is the ground zero for so many of his most memorable sort of knocks in the game.
And in Manchester, Gavaskar scored his first century against India. In Manchester, another player scored his first century 16 years later.
Yes.
So once Underwood dismissed Vishwanath, and then came Abid Ali. So Abid Ali was kind of very, how I would say, like popular character. So you might have heard about him, that a woman went and kissed him in ground.
I did not know that.
So when he went, so a bunch of Indian fans was quite cheering for him. So he came kind of with adrenaline rush and started playing his shots. Then meanwhile Gavaskar scored his 101 run, and then I think unfortunately Dennis threw a direct hit and he got run out.
Yeah.
Otherwise he was very batting with hot determination. So India finished with, I think, less than 250 they have scored, and in England then batted for again 15 minutes or 20 minutes they have batted, and in those 15 minutes itself, Geoff Boycott got out, and to whom? To Eknath Solkar. So this was 4 times in 5 games Solkar dismissed him. Now let's talk about Boycott for a second, because this match was a big deal for him, and not in a good way. As you have mentioned that he has his kind of relations with England management, but just before this guy was a star with the bat. He scored 400 odd runs in West Indies tour and literally won the last game on his own. He scored 99 runs in first inning and 112 in second inning. And no other English batter scored even 50 in that game. And England won by 26 runs only.
Yeah.
So this is kind of, you can place this in like how we used to rate border in, border 98 and 100 innings. Port of scale, where it couldn't just dismiss. It's kind of similar effort. Though West Indies bowling attack was not as good as the border faced, but still it was good effort. And after that, then he was facing this issue that with Mike Dennis, Yorkshire reprimanded him just a few days back that not chasing a target in a county.
Correct. Yeah.
And he was battling a back issue as well. So the story with Solkar goes that when in 1971 Solkar went England, so after Lords, when there's a kind of ritual when players went to meet Queen, right? So Boycott saw that Solkar was laughing, and Boycott did find it
inappropriate. Yeah.
So he went to Solkar and said, "Lad, don't laugh, go cry." So now when Solkar dismissed him, Solkar bet him and said, "Hey Geoffrey, you said one day I will cry. That day hasn't come yet." And Boycott was at a pissed off completely. So in press media was all over him that he had some, and Boycott kind of said that he was very proud on his technique. And then
Yeah.
media is writing that his technique again left armor are shaky, and out of all bowlers it was Solkar who has taken I guess only 17, 18 wickets with 60 odd bowling average.
Yeah.
So he became Bycott's kryptonite, and then Bycott told Alec Betzer that he was mentally shot and couldn't play for England. He was dropped for the next game and replaced by David Lard. What Lard did, we will discuss later. Then, ironically, he went for a club game and smashed a century. And after that, he opted out from Ashes Tour.
Yes.
And then he imposed a 3-year exile on him. Yeah. So then, we'll back to the day 4. So, John Edridge, he also came back after 2 years out in that series. And at that time, I think he was 37 or 38 years old. But even at that age, he was batting like a dream. And even he smashed, I think, a 6 on Bedi. And he scored his 100, I think, 11th 100 he scored. And he scored only 3 hours. So in those days, scoring 103 hours quite a big deal. And so Dennis again declares, I think 200 odd they have declared and set India a target of 296. So nowadays, if in baseball, this target might look like nothing. But in those days, this condition, it was quite a big deal. And surprisingly, everyone thought that this pitch could be a turner for Underwood, given the reputation with rains and all, deadly. But Gavaskar and Vishwanath actually keep India in fight. They scored, I think, 96 for 2 by lunch. So the story was the bookies offered at that time, they were 6-4 in favor of draw. But then, out of all the people, Bycott pulled off a running catch. And I think then after the India just started collapse, they have lost 5 wickets in 20 odd runs. 158 for 5 and then 182. They have got all out.
And as you had mentioned, Jeff Boycott had been coming in off, a very good run of form in Test cricket in the West Indies, helping them win that Test series. But then as soon as he came into the summer, back then, what had happened was, as you had alluded to, he had a really sort of poor relation with Mike Dennis, but he also felt the sort of mental strain behind the game that he felt like, I feel like I cannot keep up with the pressures of Test cricket, which, for observers around him and in the media, there were speculations that it was entirely related to the captaincy saga, and that because he did not want to play under Dennis that he was doing all of this. But he did suffer quite a run of poor form leading into the Test series and the sort of the county and sort of club games that he was playing. And as you mentioned, he was troubled by Solkar. And so, yeah, that was the context he came in.
Interestingly, though this is not part of this episode, but he opted out of Ashes Tour and England just got massacred in Ashes. And Dennis got replaced, but out of all players, he got replaced by Tony Greig, another player in which Bycott doesn't have good relation.
Correct. Yeah, and that's also part of it. That even after the captaincy was handed over to someone else, it was not to him, and it was to someone who, again, like you mentioned, he did not see eye to eye with, and that was another few years due to that he wanted to stay out of the game.
Yeah, and Tony Greig was like kind of larger than life character. Yeah, he obviously wouldn't put anyone else ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so now we will move to the second game, which is a quite famous game because England just crushed India by at any time 285 runs.
Yeah,
India settled for 42, their lowest Test score
until 36.
Yeah, till that time. And ironically, the year before a movie got released.
The summer of 42.
Yes, summer of 42, and it became synonym with that. They got a sequel, I guess, in the same year when India went there, or a couple of months before. So yeah. So anything about this game context or pitch, Dweplea?
So this was a pitch that you would likely not see at Lord's these days, where it was absolutely flat. I mean, as flat as it can get. So England put themselves into bat and they racked up 629 runs. They just completely took apart the Indian bowling. And this was another surface where sort of these Indian spin bowlers found it really hard to be effective. And it was the sort of surface where, you could expect batsmen to really cash in and And what further hampered India is that early on in this test, their spin bowler, who would perhaps be most effective on a really flat surface, was their leg spinner Chandrasekhar.
Injured thumb.
Correct. So Chandrasekhar was trying to field a very hard drive hit back at him from, I believe, Dennis Amos, and he really had a really bad blow to his right thumb, and so that sort of restricted him from bowling through the innings after that point. And so their attack was basically down to their two finger spinners, Bedi and Venkat Raghavan, and the two medium pacers that they had, Abid Ali and Solkar. And what made it further harder for India in this particular test match was that they didn't bowl their two medium pacers all that much. Solkar and Abid Ali didn't end up bowling all that much. They relied a lot on Bedi and...
Bedi bowled, I guess, 60 odd overs.
Correct. And he conceded over 200 runs.
226, yeah.
226, wow. Which was one of the highest conceded at that particular point of time in Test cricket. And so... what's it called? So their attack found it really hard going, and they weren't helped by the way they went about things. So Gavaskar talks about how he felt that Bedi was too attacking in his method through this test match. He was giving it flight too often, and in an attack where they were playing with meager resources because of the injuries and everything, he felt that he should have bowled it a bit more conservatively and tried to keep the game within their grasp. But the game ran away quickly as the batters took him on.
He famous for his control.
Flight and guile, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And usually that is the sort of hammer that oldies like to use to hammer younger bowlers these days, that you're not flighting it enough. This is suboptimal for Test cricket. But, on that particular occasion, the general feeling was that they weren't bowling correctly by using that particular method. And so, yeah, India were really hamstrung in this test match, both by what happened at the toss and also by, the injury that happened earlier on in the game. And England really sort of, right from the start, from a century opening partnership between the debutant David Pumble-Lloyd and Dennis Amos, they really took the game away from India.
This game actually went something similar to what teams played against Bangladesh in early 2000s.
Yeah.
That racked up a huge total and then bundled them on the road.
Correct.
So, as perfect for England and exactly opposite for India.
Yeah.
And even it could have been because I think England was 570 for 4 or something. India still managed to take their last 5 wickets for 50-60 runs.
Yeah. Although they would have declared fairly soon, I feel. They would have declared at like 640, 650 for 5 or 6 or something, But
they have, in hindsight, we can say that because India got just bundled out.
That they would have gone on to 700. Yeah.
In first inning, actually, India got a very solid start.
Yeah.
Their first partnership, I think they have added 131 on Gavaskar and Engineer.
Correct. So Engineer was the opener for this game along with Gavaskar. It wasn't what's his name? Who opened the last game? The Solkar, right? Yeah, it wasn't Solkar this particular game. It was Engineer, who was a much better batsman. And so, as you mentioned, Gavaskar, and he put on a good opening stand of 130 runs. But then after that, Vishwanath, I believe, again played a decent hand after coming in. But after that, it just fell apart. They just ran through the tail because the tail was rather weak at that point of time.
Yeah, last five wickets, they have crashed out for 52 runs.
Yeah.
They are out for 302, I guess. And then they got followed and batted 2 overs only. Reached 240, and nobody would have thought what is coming next.
Correct. Yeah.
So next day I think was rest day. It was Saturday, so Sunday was rest day, and then Monday morning they came. And
I think we need to provide a bit more context about what happens following this. So England scores 629, and then India are bowled out for, I believe it was 300, and you can fill up the rest of the numbers over here. I believe they were bowled out 302, yeah. And so they were trailing by 327 runs. And so once you've bowled that many overs these days, and when you have that sort of score racked up by the team that's batting second, usually you wouldn't enforce the follow-on, because you would like to sort of bat again and then bat them out of the game and then give your bowlers some time to rest too. But here what happened was England enforced the follow-on on India with their 23-27 runs behind. And I can guarantee you the fact that follow-on decision is aided by the fact that there was a rest day. Now with a rest day, you can take a day off, and that completely changes the dynamics of the match. Because having taken that day off, you can ask your bowlers to come back again and bowl at a team which is in a bad position. You don't need to sort of bat them out of the game again. And so, these days when people talk about test matches back in the past and compare it to the test matches today, you have to understand the dynamics of the game were completely different back then. Workloads were different. All of these considerations were different because you have to have rest days in between. Your follow-on decisions used to be different. The entire game used to be different.
Conditions
so much quicker.
Yeah, conditions could change drastically.
Correct. And this is the part that I was just about to get to. This played into England's hands perfectly in multiple ways. So, for example, in this particular test match, it allowed a team that was so far behind in the test to be kept far behind in the test because the new team could come fresh and attack them again. And so what happened on the rest day is, behind the scenes, India was relaxing. They went to some rich person's house and they sort of had a gala time over there during this particular break. But it rained incessantly that particular day. And so what happened after it rained incessantly is moisture sweat through the surface. And so when they came in on the fourth day, which was, basically a fifth day of that test match, the moisture had gotten into the pitch. And also what happens is, if you let the pitch out for like a day, the grass could also grow back in that particular period of time. And so the pitch is completely different from what it was 2 days ago. It was wet and it had a lot of sort of springing grass into it. A new grass was growing up because they weren't cutting.
Air became also quite humid.
Correct. It was a very humid and overcast day. And so India found themselves in a situation where they were really trailing the game and they had to bat out 2 days to save the test match, basically, right? And so they were faced with the hardest challenge possible, where more than the swing through the air, the ball started nipping around everywhere with the grass, with the humidity, with the dampness. And the two opening English seamers, I believe it was Greg Arnold and Chris Arnold. Jeff Arnold, I'm sorry. So Jeff Arnold and Chris Old, who were pretty good, typically English.
Arnold wouldn't have played if Bob Willis was fit.
Yeah, he didn't. Yeah. And so he was the one who actually did most of the damage. He ran through the top order, and then Chris Old came and wiped out the tail.
It took, I think, 3 and odd overs, took 4 wickets. Old lost.
Correct.
4 wickets.
Correct. Yeah.
So, cut story short, India was all out on 42 in just 65 minutes, almost correct, in an hour. And even in
this sort of confluence of conditions that happened with India getting bowled out of 46 against New Zealand last year. Imagine that sort of scenario. Basically, everything went wrong for them. Wet pitch, damp conditions, a new ball attack that is excellent at exploiting these, because both of these bowlers were known for, having good outswingers, being tall fellows, being able to nibble the ball around. Jeff Arnold in particular was able to swing the ball both ways, and so it was quite a challenging task for India.
Even in the 36 game, where India out on 36, if you remember that, India played whatever false shot they played, it straight went into fielder hands.
Yeah.
So here also after the game, Gavaskar said the kind of similar thing that Arnold and Old bowled 5 good balls. And our top 5 are gone.
Yeah. It's the same 45 minutes of bad play story where it's like all your errors get punished in a short duration of time.
Kind of those days where whatever could go wrong, it go wrong.
Yeah.
So even in their 42 runs, that Solkar was unbeaten on 18 runs, and he smashed a 6 also after getting hit by Bouncer.
But off Chris Old, right? There was this one over where he got hit on the bounce head, and then he played a few shots after that.
Yes. Now the thing is that imagine with the crowd reaction, because they have paid for entire day. And
they wanted a beer match, a benefit match.
Yes. Game was finished in the less than an hour. So they, I'm not sure whether they wanted, but somebody proposed that for a fun beer match. But MCC secretary was Jack Bailey, so that's shut off. That nobody liked them anyway.
Yeah.
So it's what kind of Wadekar was totally stunned that he led his team straight to the nets for practice.
Yes.
The thing is that after 1971, they have built a bat statue in Indore.
Yeah.
Wadekar. And then after this series, the fans just damaged it.
Yeah.
So this was kind of reaction for bilateral series.
Yeah.
Those days.
I find it so quaint. Back in the day, you were getting mad at something you weren't able to see. You were getting mad at like words you're hearing on the radio about what is happening.
Yep.
You know, that is the level to which we sort of associate with sports, is that
Yes.
we don't even have a visual understanding of what is happening, but we attach so deeply to it that we are willing to become so sort of passionate about it. Even by
I will tell you my personal experience. I have heard a lot of test games on radio in my childhood. But the thing with radio commentary, and this is one thing which I think still this is my thing, that is it has untapped business potential in India. That somebody should run a live commentary on audio on Spotify or anything, that it could attract a good audience, because once you hear audio, you will remember it for life. Visuals you might have, I mean, I could be wrong, but what I have seen other, that okay, screen is on, TV is going on, but at the same time you are scrolling your phone, you are drinking something, talking to something, and in between just checking the game and missing the little things. But with radio, that even you are doing something else, but in those days actually commentators also pretty good. So they will, I mean, how in Mahabharata there's a character Sanjay, if you know him, that he
oh no, I don't.
played.
Sorry.
So the Mahabharata's character. So you know Dhritarashtra, right?
Yeah.
So Dhritarashtra was blind. So when Mahabharata was going on war, so Sanjay has this superpower that he can see, even sitting in a room, he can see what is going on in Kurukshetra, and same he will describe to Dhritarashtra. So in those days, these radio commentators were Sanjay for us. So they do the same thing. I mean, you can sense that what exactly is going on. It's not like current scenario, like you can just turn off the screen and just listen to current commentary. You won't be able to understand what exactly is happening, right? They will talk anything from X to Y or Z, but commentary are so top notch that it will remain with you. I can just talk about that, what exactly happened on 61.4 hours on that particular day, but commentator just mentioned in such way. So yeah, this is, people were passionate in back then, and the thing is that at that time there was no World Cup and anything, so this is what it is for people, Test cricket.
Yeah.
So this is not the news.
Yeah. And this was the tour where it was all about to change, because this was the tour where India played its first ODIs too, if you know.
Yes, yeah, yep.
They
And
played
now
the first
that
ODIs.
we have got other enemies or politicized them with like Pakistan and others, Badla and all, but losing to England still was a painful, because there were people who have seen the India before 1947. They were quite active in those days.
True. Must have been completely different back in the day.
Yes, logically losing to England should be more painful than any other team.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually. That makes sense why there was such strong feeling that came out of this particular loss.
But now things are completely different. You can see the boycott and other things are happening even when everybody is ready to play.
Yeah.
So,
And returning back to this particular test match, as you mentioned, after it ended really quickly on the fourth day, Ajit Wadekar was stunned. And so, the dressing room was completely in all sorts of disarray. So the players, Gavaskar talks about this in interviews, that, no one was talking to each other. Everyone was dead silent. They had been sort of back and forth and sort of disagreements all throughout the tour between Gavaskar and Bedi and all these sorts of players behind the scenes. And so Wadekar, trying to be perhaps like the strict disciplinarian, he asked everyone to spend the rest of the day working in the nets immediately after they had gotten out. And this was while the presentations and everything was still happening. He immediately sent them out to get their stuff done and get working for the next test match. And so the fallout from this particular test was really ugly, because what happened until the third test match happened, even in the period between second and third test, a lot of ugly things happened behind the scenes. So the next particular day, India had to go to the Indian High Commission in London for a reception, and they arrived a few hours late. And the Indian High Commission got really angry about this, and they said, "We are not going to host you at all. You can just stay outside." And so they had to stay in the bus, and there was all these sort of skirmishes between them and the High Commission. And eventually they were allowed in for the event, but in that immediate time, they had really disrespected the senior players by telling them, you're just not allowed inside. And so, you disrespected us. We just can't let you in now. And to make matters even worse, the next day, there was an incident where one of the younger players, Sudhir Nayak, was accused of shoplifting in a market on the main shopping street in London. Sorry? Yeah, he was accused of shoplifting.
For socks, actually.
And
For socks.
Oh, yeah, funny. He was supposed to make his debut in the next day, which he ended up making his debut.
He did.
Yeah. Sorry?
And he played very good second inning. And the thing is that before his debut, I think after making his debut and during this game itself, he went to the court for this case.
Oh, it happened in between the games.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it happened after.
I think he got accused before the game, but the hearing went between the game, I guess.
Ah, I see. Yeah, I think he was eventually found guilty, right? He pleaded guilty.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Sudhir Nayak was actually a very respected figure in Mumbai. Even I think for Zahir Khan was kind of a godfather.
I see.
Yeah, he played very crucial role in Zahir Khan's career, and his career kind of we won't find any mention of this, but I think this incident played a huge role because he didn't get much chance, even though he scored a good half century second inning.
Yeah. This is like the sort of thing that happened with Sarfaraz Khan on this recent tour to Australia, where you have the slightest transgression, and then this is not even a slight transgression. This is a young player, or not a young, but like a coming player in the team establishment doing something that's completely egregious and then getting caught for it. I mean, that is just the sort of thing that will just have you out of favor in the team in minutes. And as we mentioned, like, this was the sort of tour that it was not just bad on the field, the things just started falling apart behind the scenes in the dressing room. And so that was an even worse time for him to have pulled off this stunt. And yeah, I'm sure it had a very lasting impact on his career. And we can now move to the third test.
Yes. Now we will move to the third test, the final segment for this episode. So this was also a similar story for both teams. England wrapped up a clean sweep and they crushed India by another inning victory, an inning and 78 runs to be precise. And this game was finished in just 2.5 days.
Yeah.
Rain wiped out the entire first day, but England didn't need it actually. And they were kind of unstoppable. It was their fourth straight win, including one win in West Indies. And this was a rare kind of win because before this game, only 2 times in England, a team lost just 2 wickets and still went on to win by innings.
I see. I mean, I don't think there would be any instance in cricket history, in Test cricket history, where a team would have lost less than 2 wickets and still won the game. 2 must be the minimum amount of wickets that a team has lost for a result match, right? I'm pretty sure about that.
Yes.
And so yeah, it was a hammering. Yeah.
And so unlike India, England, they have stuck with the same playing 11 here, even though the Edrich was kind of sick. He was suffering with flu. And here for a change, India won the toss. And yeah, I'm not sure why, but there was kind of gloomy morning, but still they decided to bat. That they thought that this weather.
Apparently, according to Wadekar, he felt that the conditions would get harder as the match got on, but they actually became a lot easier. So on the first day, he chose to bat, and so under cloudy, leaden skies and on a pitch which, as we had mentioned, because of all the rain that is happening, a lot of moisture had gone into the surface, and so again the English seamers, who were, as we mentioned, old Arnold and Hendrick, they again ran through India in those conditions. And then the next day when England's turn came to bat, it was nice and sunny, and they made all the most of it.
So the one interesting trivia I would just like to mention here, that on the first ball of the inning, Joe Farnold had Sunil Gavaskar caught behind. The first ball of the game, and it was Gavaskar second duck, I guess, but first time he was dismissed on the first ball. And the umpire for this game was Bill Elley. It was Aussie born umpire, and it was his first ever game. So in lunch interval, he called the Gavaskar in his room. So Gavaskar was kind of shocked and was scared at why umpire is calling me. When Gavaskar went to his room, he said that this was my first ever game, first ever ball, and my chance to give first ever decision, and you just robbed me off. Why you just walked it off? So Gavaskar just actually nicked it and walked. So people used to walk in those days as well. So India just crumbled to I think 165 before tea itself, and only Farooq Engineer played kind of good now. That batters actually tried to hang on, but the entire batting just fell apart. And the next day, as you mentioned, that it was pure sunshine. Dennis MS and David Laird, that even the Lords also, they have put 116. Here they put 157, and by end of the day already they have smashed 117 runs. So imagine you got out on 165 and ending the day to seeing the opposition racking 117 for 0. And that in those days, remember that India bowled just one maiden over.
Yeah.
It was the best ball in those days as well. Yeah, what you were saying?
Yeah. Oh, I was saying that this, for modern audiences, it's very similar to the third test that India played at Headingley in 2021, where they got bowled out early in the day and then England just came. And even batsmen who are not renowned for being attacking players, so who was it, Hameed and Burns, they really put on a very quick attacking stand, if you remember correctly.
Yeah.
And so this is very similar to what happened. So the openers here, Dennis Amos, and Dennis Amos was an expansive batsman comparatively. He was not a shy from stroke play, but David Lloyd perhaps not quite as expansive, and he was in his second test match, and he smashed 200 and something, right? He smashed
214. Yeah.
214, yeah. And so they just completely tore the Indian attack apart right from the start. And as we had mentioned at the last game, Chandrasekhar was missing this particular game because of the thumb injury that he had sustained, and so it was entirely a finger spin led attack along with the two opening seams.
Yes. So interestingly, that the England was kind of feeling nervous about Edrich fitness, and Edrich couldn't bat at all. Didn't bat. So they declared at 459 for 2, and first time that Edrich didn't bat in a game. So then India second inning started, and it was kind of deja vu from Lords. Arnold and Old again came back all over in India. They removed Gavaskar, Abid Ali quickly, and again after the rest day came. So we have put important context of this Sunday rest day. So I think I remember in 2005 when Bangladesh went to England. I could be wrong here, but from my memory that it was after a very long time a test happened in England which wasn't started on Thursday. They have voted Bangladesh before just Ashes 2005, where Ian Bell got his debut, I guess. So this was before that the test matches used to start on Thursday because they wanted to Sunday as a rest day for going church. Just like how in Pakistan they played on a Friday.
Yep.
So similar thing. So that's why it was kind of deja vu, because on Saturday morning India started their inning, but on Monday morning things are completely different. So yeah, again the 4-wicket India lost on 59, and then Sudhir Naik, as we mentioned, he scored I think 77 runs. So with Ashok Mankar they added I think something good, 70-80 runs they have added, and there were some shaky moments with Naik, but still he has played quite decently given his debut and the experience of court hearing as well. But Mankar then again he's trying to keep down a short ball from Old, and interestingly he knocked his cap onto his stumps.
Yeah.
So he was out kind of, and just yesterday only I have posted one instance of Joss Butler when he scored 26 runs in 207 balls. And when people talk about blockathon, they remember Faf or Amla or De Villiers, but a player like Butler played this kind of inning in Ashes, and he was also got out as his weight wicket.
Yeah.
In that game, and unfortunately he never played any test series after that series.
Yeah.
So it was kind of rare. Even in test cricket you got a hit wicket, but then India folded out for 216 and lost the game by Cunningham 78 runs. So as you mentioned that these crushing defeats were not already enough. Whispers of rifts and internal camps within the team are all over the place, and they're saying that teams even came India in one shot. They came in batches.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, the fallout was quite bad. The team didn't travel together back home, and it happens very often these days where the team doesn't travel all together. because like everyone has their own travel plans and everything. But back in the day, it was quite uncommon, especially because of the difficulty of transportation and the logistics at that particular point of time. And so everyone came back in batches. There was very little sort of communication between parties, and everything was just falling apart at the seams. And and as you had mentioned, I think you had mentioned halfway through the podcast that there was the victory bat. I think it was Syed Abid Ali's bat, which he had used to score the winning runs in 1971. Was that the bat that was used, or was it a separate bat?
No, I think it's the kind of big statue of a bat.
It's a statue of a bat.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was this particular statue of a bat that was erected in Indore after the 1971 victory. And you know how these days people deface monuments or it's not that common these days, but like in the 2000s, when teams would lose, like the Indian team would lose, they would burn effigies, they would like throw stones at houses and do all of those kind of things. So they defaced this particular bat that had been erected in Indore, and apparently there were stories that they had been throwing stones at Wadekar's house, who was the captain. But Wadekar, who immediately after the tour, he went off for a holiday in America. And so that was part of the reason why everyone didn't travel together. Some of that went on tangents. And
imagine if current Indian captain is losing a series by 3-0 in such a manner and then just going to a holiday.
Yeah. And so he said that, like, I'm sure nobody threw stones at my house because my house, or like nobody at least hit my house because my house is on the 4th floor of my apartment building. And so if someone can throw stones right the way up to my house, they would be in the test team right now. Ironically, state of our fast bowling at that point of time was likely to do.
Yep. And ironically, the same Wadekar got a hero welcome after 71 too. Yeah. This is how either you die like a hero or live long enough to become a villain.
It's also a story of how Indian fans have been toxic right from the start, and all of these stories about internal factions and all of the disputes that happen within dressing rooms, these are not recent stories. Yes, sort of conflict between senior figures in teams has been happening right from the very start in India. And in fact, this is on the harsher side of it, but there have been similarly bad incidents even before this. There was a series against Australia where India had to play 3 captains because there was constant infighting about who wanted to take the position and all the sort of skirmishes happening. So, this was a low point, but it's a low point that has echoes both in the past and in the future.
Yeah. And even just after this series, as you mentioned the start of this podcast, that I think apart from India, all other top teams were going through transitions. And this has made India in a kind of position that they had a solid chance to restore their position as a top team, but they couldn't. And after this series, now India suddenly became in the transition mode. So their captaincy change, and then we will talk in the next episode that how they fared in 79 tour with a new captain.
Yeah. And so India, as you mentioned, this was the point of time where India started to have its results fall away after this particular point of time.
Yes.
And Wadekar he didn't sack him. He wasn't sacked from captaincy. He retired altogether because because he was not getting selected anymore. Even in his domestic sides, they weren't really keen on selecting him. And so he decided to retire altogether. And as you mentioned, India's results fell away after their very early successes in the early 1970s. And England, on the other hand, they got a shot of confidence from this particular series and they felt good about it. And they were feeling confident heading into the Ashes in Australia that, things could turn out well and we could defend the Ashes once again. We could defend the Ashes. But, they got hit with the storm of Lillee and Thompson and who blew them away for one victory.
What happened with Wadekar here? The same happened with Dennis there.
Yeah. He was removed after the first test. And not even the entire series. He was so unpopular that he was thrown off after the first test itself.
Yeah.
And as we were mentioning, the other sides then started to rise. This was the sort of period where Lillee and Thompson, that particular brigade came together. And so Australia was on the rise. And then this was also the sort of period just a year or two later when West Indies started to go towards a space battery sort of strategy.
In kind of actually motivated Lloyd. And then of in game happened where West Indies couldn't defend 400 runs with his spinners. So that
Yeah.
give learned that no, I will just won't believe on spinners at all.
Correct.
And he bring
And-
his battery. Then the rest is
Yeah.
history.
Yeah. And so from a position in 1974 where India and England were sort of considered at the forefront of test match cricket, the other teams then started to sort of leave them behind after this particular point of time.
Correct. And then this India, even though India got their first fast bowling superstar by the next series, but other teams were just quite way much ahead.
Yeah. Even by the late 1970s, even Pakistan and New Zealand started to take strides ahead of India.
Yeah.
And through the 80s and 90s, then Pakistan and New Zealand were better test sides than India were. India fell way behind as time went on through the 80s, and it took a while before they started sort of getting back to the forefront of test cricket.
Yep. And it could be a controversial thing, but I mean, you will find 9 out of 10 Indian fans, they will idealize one Indian batter only. It could be from any era, but short 90% chance it will be a batter.
Yeah.
Be it Gavaskar, Sachin, Kohli or any. Right. But the fortune of Indian team changed you win with fast bowler only.
Yeah.
Either it Kapil, T20 or with the Zahir and all, or then Bumrah and all.
Yeah.
So this was the quite irony.
Yeah. Either them or a really, really good spin attack who, given conditions that are not foreign and alien to them, would be able to win India games or at least keep.
I mean here for only overseas teams.
Right, yeah.
But still unbeatable in 90s as well at home.
Yeah.
But I mean for overseas teams. So yeah, the spin attack of 70s was kind of similar of what pace attack India has from 2018 to 22. I mean Kohli captaincy.
Yeah. And India were sort of, just to wrap up this particular thing about the aftermath of this series and leading into the 1979 series, is India were a bit lucky in this intervening phase that World Series cricket came on the scene. And so that really depleted the extremely good Australian and West Indian sides. And so India were able to win a series against West Indies and also compete against Australia.
Should have won in Australia actually. But
Correct, yeah. They were able to compete there because of the Packer-led absences.
Australia literally had to bring a player who had retired 10 years earlier.
Yeah.
Bring them as captain.
Correct. Yeah.
It would have won. Okay, yeah, so I think we have covered everything for today, more than an hour. So you wanted to add anything, Dweplea?
Nothing off the top of my head. If I remember something, I'm not sure. We can add it in the next particular segment in 1979.
So we have went ahead actually than previous episode as well, and even though this series was not popular for many fans, so it it means something. So then in next episode we will talk about the 79 tour, which again has very memorable moments and the rise of another Indian all-timer there, which we will feature in the upcoming episode of India-England tours as well. So for now, that's all.